All right, folks, getting ready to bring in the host of this show, Irene Parker. She knows I'm a big fan of hers, as I am a big fan of folks in the activist space and all along those lines. So definitely having come from a family of activists and a family in the radio space, I'm getting ready to bring in Irene Parker, and she's going to be talking about what's going on with those timeshares and all along those lines. And great
Hi,
guest, so it's
Mark.
always great to have you.
Thank you and Happy New Year. I can't believe that we're closing down on a year of Timeshare Solution or Surrender. We appreciate you filling in for Kim. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guests as I see them here. I'm going to first introduce Sherida, who's been on the show with us 2 or 3, maybe 4 times. And I've invited Sherida because she knows quite a bit about Marriott, and she knows more than she'd like to know about Vacation Village. So we're going to go ahead and bring Carrie onto our show. And Sherida and Carrie both have spouses that are 100% disabled, Navy veteran, and we really appreciate their service and the sacrifice that they've made. I'm going to bring our lone Marriott buyer on today, and I'll explain why I was never so shocked when Amy talked about what happened to her and who did it. So finally, 2 more. We have Agnes on the show. We have 2 A's here, and Agnes is a Vacation Village owner like Carrie and Sherida, and we have one more to add today. We have Claire, and we want to express our condolences to you, Claire, because you lost your husband on November 8th.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as is common, if you lose a spouse, you really don't want to go to often don't want to go to a vacation resort by yourself. Not too many kids today, I think, are into vacationing with their parents. Correct me if I'm wrong. But we're going to start today, Amy, with Marriott. But the reason we selected the Vacation Village owners is because in the month of December alone, we have heard from 15 Vacation Village owners that desperately would like to be released from Vacation Village. Now, we've always put Marriott up there right close to Disney as being the hallmark of integrity, but because Marriott does have a resale program. Sherida, can you just kind of mention a couple of the resorts that you can sell if you need to exit?
Well, we sell a lot of points if people want to sell points, especially if they have a January anniversary. But really good ones to sell would be anything that's on Hilton Head in South Carolina, such as Grand Ocean and the Monarch. And then Aruba's, they sell pretty good, but they rent very well. Those are basically the best sellers.
Yeah, so the point we're trying to make here, no pun intended, is that Marriott has supported a secondary market. They have right of first refusal. Mm-hmm. And I remember in my brief career working with you in Marriott resales that someone listed 2 Aruba weeks for $10,000 each, and the offer that came in was $11,000 because they knew that Marriott would gobble up those weeks. That they're actually, there's enough demand for those, except for Amy's Marriott purchase. So Amy, can you just start a little bit and first of all, I will go ahead and add that when she told me the name of her sales agent, because he has such an unusual middle name, I could not believe it. And he was in the same week, 2 former Diamond sales agents that we had multiple complaints about, and I've got 5 of them here, that now he's selling for Marriott. And we don't have a recording of the fraud, but we're going to, we can certainly say his first name is Michael. That's a common name. So Amy, go ahead and tell us why, when you bought, why you're not happy. And unlike the resorts that Sheridan mentioned, you purchased at Grand Chateau in Las Vegas, and that is not on Sheridan's list to have a resale value. So go ahead and let us know your experience.
Okay, so I owned in the Sheridan, Vistana Villages in Orlando, and we were just in Las Vegas at this place at the time and had to do an update. And he was explaining to us how what I owned, Marriott had bought out Sheridan, and basically what I owned had no value anymore, and kind of was misleading in the fact that we needed our maintenance fees for that would continue to go up. And so we would get a lot better money for our value and more trips to go on. And so that was one point. But the selling, there were certain things that, led us to go ahead and say, okay, we'll do this, where that he said we could refinance. He was like, your credit's excellent. You have, there'll be no problems. I have several companies that I can provide to you that will refinance. He's like, when you get home, you've got to make the first payment. And then once you made the first payment, then you can call these said companies that will refinance the loan. Because I told him at the presentation, like, we cannot afford this a month. It was like $900 a month. I was like, there's no way I'm going to purchase this. And he was like, oh, no, it'll be fine. You can refinance it, which we've now found out that that's not the case. We cannot, because there's no equity into this timeshare.
Yes, exactly. And so this was 2024. You purchased
Yes.
August 24th,
August.
2024. Okay, I'm going to this was in 2019, November 29th. We purchased, and by the way, the Diamond Resort sales agents were famous for saying, oh, you own with Monarch, you owned with Sunterra, you're going to be the last man standing paying the maintenance fee bills. So he just tweaked the playbook for Marriott here. So this first complaint is on November 29th, 2019, we bought 7,000 points for $288,000 with less additional equity, of which there's none. Diamond points have no resale value, for an adjusted purchase price of $48,000. We financed $87,000. When the loan amount was $1,349, and we told them we couldn't possibly afford that. Sound familiar? Michael was called into the office. They took us out and said that U.S. Bank would finance a HELOC loan. But we couldn't say anything to the escrow agent because they would both lose their jobs. Now, in 2017, what we're trying to get the word out is the oral representation clause in a contract states that you agree that you did not believe anything a sales agent said. So whenever you start your complaints, the sales agent said, they'll show your initials where you said you agreed that you didn't rely on that. So they went out and they came back with a stack of papers, and on the top of the papers was the U.S. Bank HELOC, and gave it 5 days. They said, wait 5 days, because that happens to be the cancellation period in Nevada, and then contact your bank. And of course, the bank said that they couldn't finance it. The second complaint with the same agent was in 2019. Her mom, also Agnes, she was over 70, and they said she would benefit from the equity of $204,000. And again, there's none. And they encouraged her to open a Barclay card to transfer her equity to that card. Now, all of these resolved following our dispute resolution process. And it was, some of them were a battle, but they were able to persist. The third one, we met with Ali and Michael. Ali wrote out that if we turned in our 50,000 points, we would get a credit of 30 cents per point. So we had probably over 100 complaints where there was a 30-30 discount program. You could book 30% of your points at 30 cents for 30% of a cruise. And then they would lie and add on, and you can pay maintenance fees with 30 cents a point when the highest level was only 4 cents. So it was a big scam. Okay, complaint number 4 in 2019. I bought 4,000 points, but they never mentioned we were buying points. They mentioned that we had to pay $268 a month for 10 years to replace our maintenance fees. They said if I had registered my equity, I should have received an email. Michael came up with the numbers by multiplying $1,600 maintenance fee by 10 years, saying I would be paying $16,000 if I didn't sign up for this. And he said, when your maintenance fees are due, go to the website and put apply my points to maintenance fees. The escrow officer asked why I signed. I said that, and they said, so they called him in and he took her out. He says, don't worry about it because we're going to switch it over to the Barclay card after you sign. The last one was in 2022. I guess in 2022, he was still working for Diamond. The agent said he wanted to offer us the opportunity to buy the equity in the points we already had. So we would not have to go to updates and our maintenance fees would be eliminated. Diamond would get a kickback. And after we used 30,000 points, no maintenance fees. This was the only way we could get out of Diamond is if we bought into equity. And when they sign, they're going to say that you bought 20,000 points, but you're not. You're purchasing equity. The total price was $227,000 and the amount financed $116,000. They rescinded the contract. They canceled. Then they got a call from the agent and said, I want you to talk to someone. He's like a property broker. His name is Michael. And so she spoke to Michael and he said that he would do the financing and that would decrease their payment to $300 or $400 a month. I mean, can you believe it? So Amy, you followed our process and you sent a report to Marriott. What was the response?
The guy just said that he reviewed the contract and that everything looked in order to him and that that's it.
Yes. And are you prepared to default?
Yes, because one other thing is he said that we could sell some of our points. We have 5,000 club points. Sell some of the points to offset the maintenance fees.
You mean rent them?
Yeah, I guess. But he said they would somebody, which he's yet to tell us who, would pay us up front for those points, and we could use those to pay the maintenance fees. And he also said the maintenance fees, because I specifically asked, well, how much, since this was August, they should know about how much they are for this year. And he said they were due in January, which they were actually due in December. And they're $4,300, where I was just paying $1,800 before. And he told me they'd be, around 3,000, but you'll have so many more points and be able to go to so many more places.
And did you check the contract to see if the maintenance fee was listed on the contract?
I looked. I did not see it in there anywhere.
And Sheridan, if you can address, run that by me again about he would find you people that would pay you for your points.
Pay up front for the points. Like we just tell them how many we want to give them, and then they'll pay us up front, and then they'll take care of the rest as far as renting or selling or whatever they do with those points. I'm not sure.
So Sheridan, I know that you help people that rent desirable properties, but does Marriott provide a rental service?
We don't use them. We just do it ourselves.
But they do have a rental service?
I think so. I haven't checked into it very much because we don't use it.
So Amy, did you attempt to do that, to rent or?
Not yet, because he said he would send us the information in January. So because we bought in August, we don't have use until January 2025.
So basically the $912 a month
Yes.
is too much. and
Yes.
everything else is kind of a moot point. But yeah, that would be a whole
And
another show to
yeah,
talk about rental.
the final selling point was that he was like, well, at any time, if you're unsatisfied, Marriott has an exit company. He basically said you could just tell them that you were unsatisfied and they would take this back. But since I've been in touch with the exit company, that's not true. You have to pay the entire balance off first.
Sure.
Which is $66,000. I mean, I'm not going to pay that just to give it away.
Oh my gosh. And Marriott probably would not buy back this particular resort, right, Sherida?
It's possible. If you had a buyer, this is how it works. If you were to do a listing agreement with us and we would put it on the market for sale. And if it was the right price, you may get a buyer, and the buyer and the seller would work together to purchase this timeshare. And then I would have to send all the records over to Marriott, and they would decide if they want to buy it first or if they want to waive their right and then allow the buyer to buy it. So there is a process. We would have to have a buyer first. So either Marriott would buy it back or your buyer would buy it.
Well, and the vacation village, it's kind of unusual that Sherida works for a broker that does not want us to mention the name of his company because he's afraid that too many like vacation village owners will call them. Because I've heard him say, well, even though we say on our website only Marriott, we still have all these vacation village, Great Eastern, Soleil Management people that call us. And Sherida, you have turned lemons into lemonade. You're actually earning money in rentals and resales. But this all started with Vacation Village with one thing I've learned since you were first on the show is you said your Vacation Village, the Colony sales agent, said she had a friend who's a real estate agent, but I believe they worked for VSI, Vacation Services.
Yes,
Yeah,
Vacation Services International.
They're not real estate agents.
Yeah,
They are a listing agency. So go ahead and tell us how the mess that you're in because of the promise of a buyback from your Westgate resort.
We had a Westgate and our sales agent, Jackie, said, oh, I have a friend who can sell that for you and so that you can pay for our colonies. Well, we have this fault that we actually believe people. We don't expect to be completely lied to. So we trusted her that, okay, we will list it with this guy and he'll sell it for us. That would help pay for the colonies. And then afterwards we could rent our bonus weeks every year to pay for maintenance fees. And because we have a 4-bedroom lock-off still, that we could also rent that either through Vacation Village or exchange it on interval. So of course it didn't pan out. So that's how I met Irene.
Well,
I was trying to find out how to get rid of this thing and get.
Yeah, and you have to pay Westgate $2,500 for them to take it back. What was the listing price that you paid $299 to list it for how much money?
We actually purchased it for $23,000, I think, or was it $8,000? And he wanted to sell it for $33,000.
Which is absolutely ridiculous. And we want to warn about listing agencies like Sell My Timeshare Now and Timeshares Only. Our board president, Sheila, is going through the same situation that all of you folks are going through with Vacation Village, that she's got some medical challenges and they're refusing to take it back as well. And she called Timeshares Only, recommended by Club Exploria and by the American Resort Development Association, ARDA, and they advised her to list her Club Exploria for $9,000 to $11,000. That would be the same as Claire and me saying, okay, yeah, if you happily pay us $800 for a listing, and that's a good starting spot place. So you, as opposed to Sherida, is a network of about 50 brokers in the United States or more, probably a lot more. I surveyed all of them when I found out that my diamond points had no resale value to ask them why. And there's an organization aptly named the Licensed Timeshare Resale Broker Association. So if you call Sherida's firm, you could always reach out to Sherida directly through Facebook. Then they function as traditional real estate brokers. So you find a buyer, you know, you want to sell, they do just like selling your home, they do everything up front, and then they get paid at closing.
Right.
So now let's go ahead and we'll go clockwise. So Claire, question one, when did you buy Vacation Village? What prompted you to want to sell? And number three, are you prepared to default? And as I went nuts, someone tagged me on Facebook on Tug this morning, and they said that their names were put on the Vacation Village deed, and they didn't want to be on there, and their parents died, and now they're trying to get off. And somebody posted, number one, it's a felony if you don't pay your maintenance fees. I mean, oh my gosh. And then someone else posted, well, you must pay your maintenance fees because as, you know, this burdens everybody left behind. That's like saying the condo that I live in, I should never sell it because it would burden other people. So go ahead, Carrie, and I'd like all of you to look for that post and respond to that person when the show is over. So Carrie, can you answer those three questions if you remember them?
You want Claire or Claire?
Sorry, I was going to go clockwise. So let's
Claire.
start yeah, okay, yeah, right, Claire.
Okay. I bought about 15 years ago, and it's the Grand View in Las Vegas. It's 1 week in August that I have on a point system. And my maintenance fees are $475 a year. And the reason I'm getting out, obviously, is because I don't think I'm going to be using it like my husband and I used to. And my complaint is that they won't take it back. Obviously, we know that. But they are willing to rent it as long as I sign yearly that I give up my week. And then if they do find someone that will rent it out, they will give me 63% of whatever the cost of the rental would be. And I could put that directly towards my maintenance fee. And then just get the remainder in a check if it happens to be more, or vice versa. So now I'm forgetting what the other question was that you had.
Well, and that's if they rented it. And number
Right.
one, you have no intention of using it again.
No, I mean,
Okay.
I could just maybe force myself to say, oh, well, I'll go. And because I want to make up for my lost money, my lost maintenance fees. But it's been paid off for a long time. So I'm not in as bad a position as I hear the horror stories of other people, especially Amy. Oh my gosh. But still, I just don't want to have that to pass down to anybody.
Well, and that's another question where we had a new Wyndham person reached out. They did not buy from this Wyndham sales agent, but as I said, our expenses would go up 20% if we don't buy a deed. Wyndham sells points, they're not selling it. And then our children would be responsible for $900 a month. All states have laws that allow an heir to disclaim a timeshare inheritance or pretty much any inheritance. You just have to check with the person that prepared your estate or your will, and it's important for your kids to know it's out there so that they can disclaim it. But basically, now, are you prepared to default on the maintenance fees?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so, and then we have and the other thing you sent me, you talked about yesterday, asking me about that there is, they say it's not insurance, but if it quacks like a duck and walks like a duck, and if you enroll the enrollment period by a certain period, then you can enroll in this insurance program that's not an insurance program. And if you qualify for certain hardships, of which one of them is death,
And it's too late because you have to buy the insurance per year at, I think, $50 a year.
$59, I think you said
59,
yesterday.
yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously my husband's already passed away, so that wouldn't work. And it would only be for the year. So it's every year you purchase this insurance. And then if something happens before your next dues, they'll cover the dues. But that's just,
Well, and see, it doesn't have to be this way.
Mhm.
A couple of us are old enough to remember the show Saint Elsewhere. And so we bought at Port Elsewhere in the 80s, and I'm dating myself now. And I said, look, I was born and raised in St. Louis. I love Branson. I went to Branson my whole life, but we live in Florida now, so I don't want to vacation in Missouri anymore. And they said, yeah, we had a board meeting. You bought this so many years ago, paid your maintenance fees. I'll send you a paper. I signed something and it was gone.
Wow.
And we have a board member that's written an article about his experience serving on an HOA that has a responsible exit program where they will attempt to help you find buyer and seller, and they will help you to rent it, but it doesn't have to be like this. And so, Agnes, let's go ahead and listen to your situation, the same couple of questions. When did you buy? What prompted you to want to be released? And are you prepared to default?
It's such a blur for me because now that I even look to the papers, I really was 17 now that for the first one. And I just came to the States from Europe. My stepdad thought it would be a good idea to, build the credit for me and my mom. So we were really clueless. And my dad he's such a good guy. He's like, okay, it sounds like amazing, right? So I mean, all I did is put my signature without oh my gosh, we get this beautiful apartment. And I'm thinking this is like my house or something. It's just everything was just beautiful painted picture that I really have no idea what I did. And we don't know how to use it. We haven't used it for 10 years or something. We went maybe a couple times. But yeah, and then we got stuck with a 1 bedroom and then 2 bedroom. How that happened, I don't know. I don't remember a thing, honestly. So yeah, and then my mom is the one that they call her to all the time. And then she's the one that receives the maintenance fees letters and to her address. And she's like, I have no idea what to do, how this works. And then she asked me questions and I have no idea, So I'm trying to search for help because it's we are really clueless, honestly. And
Well,
that's why I want to default. And I'm telling my mom, stop paying maintenance fees because her name is first and then my signature came after. So,
you're on the deed. And one of the things we try to do when someone reaches out is, if you've never bought a timeshare before, is it possible now, if you haven't used it for many years, it's probably too late, but is it possible to make the best of it? And if the problem is that you just don't know how to use it, you have 3 people with us today, 4 people with us today that do know how to use it, to try to get something out of it. But if that's not, yeah, I think it just, the enthusiasm runs
no,
down.
because we're so disappointed, in all of the things, because it's this person calls, the other person calls, bothers, we're not even going and using it because you can go and like get, a hotel room or like, for like the same price,
Yes.
enjoy whatever you wanted. So that's another, I think, argument is like, this is so stupid. And then when we first got into it, like I said, everything was just picture perfect, like in the moment. And then you're like, oh, so I honestly thought that it's all the time, like anytime kind of thing,
Mhm.
then later you're like, oh wait, what, once a year kind of thing. Yeah, so
Well, and when you first reached out to me, you tried to blame it on being from a former foreign country, and I'm like, no, 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 you can be 100% born in.
back then that's what it was, because I'm just like, I hadn't even no idea. I was not really, I was like kind of in the back when my parents were like, at the desk talking. My mom's English was even worse, really, when the meeting was happening. So that's what I said. My dad was kind of the initiator, because he's like the English speaking one. And he just was like the good hearted person thinking like, no, this is what's going to build your credit, girls. Great. So he also helped like thinking like, this is a great idea. And then we find out it's not really the case. So yeah, we kind of, our English was weak at the point. So, I mean, that's why. 2004, I think that's when it happened. And then we just came to the States in 2003.
Oh, in 2003 is when you immigrated here to America?
Yeah.
Yes, and I was really excited if I can share your country of origin.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Lithuania. I won't make our guest today listen to my grandmother stories again, but I will say that my grandmother was a mail order bride from Lithuania, and I heard she had to cross 2 glaciers to get here, and she didn't know her birthday, and her name was Anna. And I was extremely close to her. So I've been thinking about Lithuania every time, ever since we first talked a few days ago. And now, Carrie, how long did you and your husband own at Vacation Village? When did you first buy?
We purchased in February of 2008 at Massanutten, which is the Great Eastern part of Vacation Village.
And you have week 1. Are you the one with week 1?
We have week 1, start January, the first week of January. It's a red week. We were led to believe that we could trade it for anything, anywhere. They called it a Gold Crown week. And we primarily bought it to trade because we wanted to vacation in other places. We move around a lot, or at the time we did, because my husband was active duty, and we thought it would be something that we would make a lot of use out of. But when we bought it, my husband was getting ready to leave for a year on a deployment, and we tried to use it when he came home mid deployment. And even then, 8 months later, we were not able to trade it for any place in Mexico. We just couldn't find anything, not knowing that it was only going to be eligible for 10% of the available inventory in RCI. We never knew that.
And who informed you of that?
I had called RCI asking for help to try to locate something that we could trade it for. And the RCI agent told me that many years later, because I called them so many times trying to get them to help. It just wasn't working the way it had been sold to us. And that's when one of the RCI agents told me that we were only eligible for 10% of their inventory. And I think it had something to do with the fact that we owned weeks versus points. I'm not sure. I don't even know how that works, but
maybe that's because RCI is in a big point selling business now. But I had not heard of that, because if you have a red week, and Massanutten is a ski area.
Yes.
So why that would be reduced to 10% of the inventory? Now, when you came back to the States and settled down here, did you attempt to use the timeshare?
I tried to use it, actively tried to use it for the first probably 6 to 8 years that we owned it. And then That was probably about the time that the RCI agent told me that we weren't eligible. And I told my husband, I said, this timeshare is worthless. We can't trade it for anything. I said, so I said, it's pointless to even continue with the RCI because you have to pay extra for that. I said, if we can't trade it, why belong to RCI? I was seeing all these things, but we couldn't trade. So at that point, I quit paying for RCI, and we would go to Massanutten every once in a while, but it's not, we'd like to go to Mexico. We go to Mexico twice a year, and we've never been able to trade it.
And what state do you live in?
We live in Virginia.
Oh, you're in Virginia, so you're pretty close to.
We are. It's only about a 3 to 4 hour drive from where we live.
Do you still ski? Did you ever ski?
Nope. Because we bought it to trade. You know, the most we ever did was go tubing there. So at the time we had kids that snowboarded. So, you know, when they were still living at home, there were a few years where we did go to take them, but we primarily bought it to trade.
Exactly. And Claire, did you and your husband use, and you purchased at
Grandview.
and you are, what state? You're California,
I'm
correct?
living in California, and we're about 4 hours away from Vegas, where
Claire
Grandview
and I
is.
are the same. I'm in California, Grandview.
Oh,
Oh.
really? Okay. Well, I do go. I mean, we've gone several times, and it was a good time for us, and it felt like it was worth it. We had to pay, of course, the 200 and something exchange fee, right, to even have the vacation for the week that we would take. And you know, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And
I cannot hear anything.
Oh.
is there a mute? Oh, that's weird. I'm not sure how to help you with that. Well, she can't hear me. Oh, there she went.
Okay.
So anyway, I haven't had a big complaint other than knowing that this day would come. And now I'm just thinking, of course, such a good point to make sure that in my trust I have what you called, and now I forgot the way you termed it. Disclaimer.
But instructions in your will on how the kids can disclaim it.
Okay. Because I'm just about to rework my trust, so I can.
Well, and there's nothing worse than losing a spouse, and to be dealing with all the paperwork that goes along with that and the grief. We had
add anything to it.
Yeah, we had Sandra on our show, and she had been a Worldmark owner for. Oh, here she's. Let me see. I think we can bring Agnes. Welcome back.
I don't know. I couldn't. Claire started talking and I couldn't hear things. So.
Yeah, no, we're okay. But I was just saying that Sandra had owned at Worldmark, and we're trying to show that some of these problems are industry wide. And my husband and I have owned 4 timeshares. We're down to 1, but we exchanged ours all over the world. You know, we're not trying to vilify the industry, but Sandra, and she was able to resolve her dispute, but it required our host, Kim, reaching out to the media director of Wyndham, where her husband was a Korean War veteran, and he died of cancer with the same symptoms as Agent Orange. And they walked in and they said, oh, it's not a Worldmark anymore, it's Travel and Leisure. Because Wyndham bought Travel and Leisure, but they're changing the name. No, yeah, they bought Travel and Leisure, but Wyndham is changing their name to Travel and Leisure. So we have to add your information into our file. And she walked out of there not knowing she had purchased 11,000 points. And she was practically homeless because she couldn't rent and she couldn't buy. So we're trying, there's an organization that has been publishing a magazine for years and years, Timesharing Today, and they just produced, I had no idea they were going to do this. It was like a Christmas present, where they produced a video, a Vimeo, called that is warning about the oral representation clause. So we're hoping that we can get that Vimeo to as many people as we can that haven't purchased a timeshare. Now, Amy, I want to go back to your situation, because people constantly ask, what happens if I don't pay maintenance fees? What happens if I don't make my loan payments? When did you stop your loan payments?
Well, we paid the first one because he told us that, and that was in November, because he told us that would, we had to do that to be able to refinance. So we had one due in December and we haven't paid it. And the maintenance fees were apparently due in December and we haven't paid them either. So
have you received any phone calls?
Yes. And when when they called, I told them, I said, well, I'm not paying this because I'm in dispute about the process of the buy. And so far they haven't done anything, I don't guess. I told them, that the maintenance fees, they actually charged me twice. So they had $8,000 something in there for the year. They had messed it up somehow. So then they did agree that they messed that up and we're fixing that. And so that was like 2 weeks ago. And she was like, well, just wait till that gets fixed for you go in there and pay it. And I said, okay, but I'm probably not going to pay it.
Okay.
So
And
they
so
haven't done anything as far as other than just call and say you're late on your payment.
well, and Marriott seems to be less aggressive than some other companies, and they have a resort called Harborside, right, Sherda, where the maintenance fees have gone up to $3,600 a year or $4,600 a year.
Pretty high.
And and she was defaulting on maintenance fees. And I got on the phone with her, with Marriott, and they were as nice as could be. And I said, why doesn't Marriott just sell this property if they won't take it back? So she had no choice but to default. And they offered a deed in lieu of foreclosure. And she got that notice in the mail and she was terrified. I said, no. Deed in lieu of foreclosure means instead of foreclosure. That's a good thing. And so she's like, and I got on the phone with her again. And then 2 weeks later, she called hysterical, I just got a maintenance fee bill. So we got back with Marriott again, and they said, no, that's just the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. Just forget that. But I always take the opportunity when people are going to default to share my ICE agent story. I've shared it, but a lot of people are seeing this for the first time. And this gentleman defaulted on a loan. He was sold not enough points for a family of 6 to go to Hawaii. So he defaulted on a loan. He was a Navy veteran with traumatic brain injury, PTSD. And the collection agent would call him at work and he would say, I'm really glad you called. I'm so glad you called. No one ever tells a collection agent that they're so glad that they called. And he would say, I have a master's degree in criminal justice, and there's been over 1,000 complaints filed with this company just in Arizona. I have a master's degree in criminal justice. I want to talk. Can you call me at home tonight at 7? This is going to take over an hour. And and he would, really mean that. And he turned the predator into the prey. His friend was listening to him on the phone and he was like, dude, and then one day he called me and he said, I had a really bad day at work. So when I got home, I sent 50 tweets to the executives. And then, when you post on Facebook, you're preaching to the choir, right? But if you go on LinkedIn is where all the sales agents and the executives are. And with Sheila, who's going to be on our show in 2 weeks with Club Exploria, I showed her a LinkedIn post where we sold $600,000 worth of timeshare points this week. So he would go on LinkedIn, some executive would post something warm and fuzzy about the timeshare company, and he would just keep going in and blasting them. And so after 18 months, they just got fed up with him and called him and canceled his loan. Then we
nice. Wow.
And we had the Westgate people that were lied to about renting. They alleged they were lied to about renting. And they actually, so I suggested, why don't you launch a Facebook group? So she let me name it. It's called Westgate Timeshare Hostages, because Westgate will pick and choose what they will take back. Sometimes they will take it back for $2,500, but one person, I sent them, both the husband and wife had cancer and couldn't travel. And ARDA, the American Resort Development Association, had just come out with their Responsible Exit website, and Westgate was prominently featured. So I thought, oh, this is wonderful. So I said, just call artists. And there was an article in Resort Trades about how they were one of the 14 founders. So I said, well, this is wonderful. And I referred that couple to them, and they got passed around and told, we don't take them back, and that's not our website. So I had read about Westgate suing an exit company, and I called the exit company and I said, you should talk to these people. And they did, and they listed him as a witness in the lawsuit. And the day that Westgate saw that, they called them and they took it back and waived the maintenance fees. So then the other Westgate people, she came up with the Facebook name Bend Over. Ben has two ends. We try to keep our gallows humor, right? So she launched this Facebook group, I think at the end of 2021. There's over 4,000. Sherida, you're an admin of that group as well.
Yep.
So she just filed with everybody under the sun. She got names of probably 10 people at the Florida Attorney General. She organized a protest to hold up signs the day of their annual meeting. And the other person that held up signs, they were told, oh, she didn't need a timeshare in Orlando because her childhood home was there. And they said, oh, you have a t-shirt business in Boston. You can combine that. And the agent even came up with the name Jackie's Vacays. And so she was just as bulldog as Bend Over was. And then we had Carl. Carl actually had cards made that said, don't buy, they lie. And he would leave them in the men's restroom. He had a t-shirt made that said, don't buy, they lie. And he went up the elevator and he got off, and it was in the sales meeting room with all the people. And he went, good morning, don't buy, they lie. And he almost got tackled by the sales manager. And they released Ben and the other person. They were able to resolve their dispute, but they didn't resolve Carl. So Carl, in this past July, was going to hold up signs protesting at the opening of the stage play in Boston, The Queen of Versailles. Sherida, you've heard of The Queen of Versailles. Has anybody else here heard of The Queen of Versailles? Okay, don't watch it before going to bed at night. It's a Netflix movie and a documentary about the people that own Westgate and building their 90,000 square foot home with 24 bathrooms, 30 bathrooms, an ice skating rink, and comments like, and when the housing market crashed, my children had to fly on commercial airlines. It breaks your heart. While we have Andrew, and if there's one reason I do this, it's because active duty service members can lose their security clearance. One of the 15 people that reached out to us about Vacation Village this month is active duty. And we had Andrew, a young couple with a 6-year-old. They were sold a 4-bedroom as an investment. An investment that you could rent it out. You could buy getaway weeks. He served 10 years with the Idaho National Guard, and he intended to serve 20. and he applied for a transfer, but he had no choice but to default on a 4-bedroom. A young couple with a 6-year-old buying a 4-bedroom, and so he did not re-enlist, and that is the main reason. So how much, Amy, you're the only one here that has a loan. And as far as you having this brazen deception, have you yet filed with the Florida Attorney General?
Yes, I filed a complaint with them, and they had sent a response just that they received the complaint, but that's all I've got so far.
Okay, and that's a good thing to know, is that there are pro-consumer attorney generals and pro-industry attorney generals, and we consider Florida pro-industry. Maybe it's that $90 billion a year that flows into Florida each month. So the only thing Florida does is they forward it to Marriott, and Marriott will say, here's the contract, and everything looks great.
That's what they did.
Did Marriott responded?
Yeah, Marriott responded to me, say they received the complaint, from the Florida Attorney General, and everything looked fine to them.
Okay, but then I actually prepared for you a summary of these 5 complaints against the same sales agent.
Yes, and I sent that, and they just sent the same response letter, basically, that he reviewed it, this one guy in customer advocacy, named Ray, and he said, that's what he said in the customer advocacy, that he reviewed everything and everything looked in order to him.
Okay, and then so if you have time, one thing we would like for you to file a complaint, especially since this agent is so bad, is with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Has everybody heard of CFPB?
No.
Okay, you remember when Wells Fargo people got some money back because of they were opening accounts to try to get a bonus? That's the agency that that were able to do that. So they have they regulate banking and lending, but you can't file a complaint with them because there's a drop-down menu, and they don't consider a timeshare resort or a developer a financial institution, but you can tell your story. And if you just search CFPB, tell your story, and you think that, well, what good is that going to do? It ended up doing a lot of good. They work with the Federal Trade Commission, and the Federal Trade Commission has Section 5 defining unfair and deceptive practices. And we had attorney Mike Finn on our show August 5th, episode 24. Many people, it's a good episode to watch of this show because he talks about default. And he said, we talk so much about deception, as you experienced, Amy. He said, but we also should talk about unfair. So holding you hostage in this for the rest of your life certainly qualifies as unfair. We also have a board member whose wife works for reviewing agencies that help with domestic violence and senior abuse and elder abuse. And I was informed that they are in the elder abuse hotline is interested in timeshare. So I'm asking people, if you are over, you have to look at which state you're a senior. I think one state it's 60, another might be 65. But if you're a senior, I'm asking people to research that to see what happens when you file a complaint with that. But I attended, along with our volunteers, a appellate court hearing, and also at the Florida court, 2 appellate court hearings in Jacksonville and one in Atlanta. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau sent an attorney to argue on behalf of consumers in Lewis versus Blue Green. And in, I forget what, there's so many lawsuits, it's hard to keep up with one or the others. But, and, you know, for the active duty, your husband was active duty then when you bought this, Carrie?
Ours, yes, he was.
Yeah. Okay, so 4 developers have been sued: Westgate, Blue Green, Holiday Inn, Westgate, Blue Green, and Wyndham, accused of violating the Military Lending Act. And Westgate, the judge in Steins versus Westgate, and Andrew that I just mentioned, he ended up being a lead plaintiff, but then he was dismissed because he was enrolled in the National Guard, but he wasn't deployed in the National Guard. But the judge in the Florida court ended the day by saying, when I check out of a timeshare, I can't leave my underwear and toothpaste, because the argument was whether a timeshare stay is a residential stay or a transient stay like a hotel, because the Military Lending Act exempts home mortgages. So Westgate appealed and they lost in the appellate court. So I have, if you go to the TARTA blog and you go to military, I have an update on those 4 lawsuits, because the way I feel is there's nothing more distasteful than an active duty service member losing their security clearance because they financed a timeshare. And even if you're just defaulting on maintenance fees, it's a concern. So we're left here with Sherida and Carrie and Claire. How do you feel after the support that you've received from the people on this show? And you know, I think you just feel all alone when you're going through this. Carrie, let's start with you for our final comments.
Knowing that there was other people out there that had the same feeling about it as I did is what gave me the boost that I needed to decide to default. I just decided I'm going for it. We had already been talking about it, but this month I sent letters. We're not going to pay our maintenance fees, and we're just going to see what happens. I received a letter back from Massanutten telling me that they received my emails and it's in the review process, and I should hear something in 30 to 45 days.
And what do you say to the people that post on Facebook, oh, you should just make the best of it and learn how to use it and enjoy it?
You can't use it. I've tried for many, many years, and I'm just not going to keep rewarding them with maintenance fees. And it's something that I definitely don't want to pass down to my children. So I'm going to take care of it.
But there are people that have been vacation village owners for years and have used it and have enjoyed, but it doesn't work for your family. Agnes, how would you respond to somebody that said, well, you should just make the best of it and use it?
Yeah, like I feel like I'm the same, because like you were talking about 10% of like you're able to use it. I think we kind of had the same question years ago when we were trying to like deal with our CI, and it was like, oh, you can't go here, you can't go there. So then it was like, what is this all about? So like, where else will I research? I don't want to just go to Las Vegas all the time, you know? And yeah, I feel like there's not much of a use, and then they're not really even being like nice when you try to even ask any questions. Like the particular questions you're even trying to find, they don't even have answers to you. They just want you to pay, and not answer anything you're trying to find out, like for your benefit. So it's just like, it's not pleasant to even deal with any of those people at all.
Well, and we had Cassandra was a past guest on this show. If you remember, Sherida, I think you were on with her as well. And and her agent said you can rent it out during Formula One and make the $6,000 back in a week. And that's pretty much impossible. So, Mark, it's nice to see you again. Thank you for being our producer today. I see we're running out of time.
Yeah, running out of time. Another amazing show. It's great to hear all of you women advocating for yourselves and definitely doing that great work of being self-advocates, because definitely we know that a lot of times corporations and particularly it seems like in this timeshare business, they can definitely do a lot of things that are not fair and not just in any sort of way. So I'm glad to see that you women are taking this issue on and are definitely not letting folks step over you, because we know that too often people will let folks step over them and not do enough to right the wrongs that they are facing and everything. So I was listening to y'all story and really admiring what y'all are doing in terms of taking this fight to this industry that has a lot of problems and needs to be corrected.
Well, thank you, Mark. And we'll see everyone next week. We have Holiday Inn people, I think, on next week.
Cool. So
Thank
Thank you, Irene, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
no problem.